Alright guys, so let's go ahead and get started on modeling that can. So you're going to hit General once you open up Blender. You're going to box select to delete everything in your viewport. So there we go. In your outliner, you're going to click this new collection button over here. You're going to double click on the name to rename it to whatever your brand is called. I'm just going to do Red Bull since this is your walkthrough. Cool. And then you're going to hover over this filter option here. You're going to select selectable and then the disable in viewport option. And now you'll be able to have these additional things to toggle off and on. Awesome. So now let's go ahead and bring in those reference images. And then make sure you're in the Red Bull can collection so all this gets added to the right layer. Right, and in case you need any help, I toggled on the screencast, so whatever I'm clicking on, my mouse, keyboard, it'll show up down over here. So I'm going to hit Shift A, hover over image, and then select reference image or reference. Go ahead and your USB should pop up in this top left-hand corner. Remember we made a folder in the first video, so I'm going to go look for that Red Bull can side PNG. If you're doing a different kind of can because you're doing a soda can that's shorter, whatnot, just make sure you have a good image that you can use to model your can. Okay, and for the most part, it should still follow this tutorial. So load reference image. If you use your middle mouse button right to hover around, you'll notice that it came in at a certain rotation, which I don't want. I hit 1 on my number pad because this is front view. So you could do that by clicking the image, and then if you hit Alt R, or I'm sorry, R and then Alt, it takes away any of the rotation. I can't do that because this is my gaming PC and it'll bring up some gaming controls. So I'm just going to hit N as in Nancy on my keyboard to bring up this view option. And oops, the image is not selected. There we go, item. So now I'm just going to hit 0 for all of this. So this is how I really wanted this image to come in. I'm going to hit 1 really quick. All right, so I need to rotate this 90 degrees on the x-axis. So again, select it. And I do that by hitting R, X, and then hitting 90 on my number pad, and then enter to confirm. So now when I hit number pad 1, which is my front view, it's perfect in that view. I'm just going to grab it and then hit GZ to move it up on the Z-axis and drop it there. Double click on the outliner to rename this to front can view. I don't know, whatever you want to rename that to. Now we're going to bring in the top of the can. So Shift A, image reference, Red Bull can top. Same thing here. I'm just going to remove all these rotations. I don't need it for the top. And I'm going to go into front view for this. I still have that selected. GZ to move it upwards to about there. And now I'm basically just going to resize this to what I think is the right size. Kind of hard to tell. Excuse my cat. All right, I'll leave that there for now. I'm gonna rename this once you're done. And then I'm gonna toggle off the top view just because we're going to focus on modeling this view right here. So let's get started. To collapse this, you just hit N again on your keyboard and it collapses. So we're going to do Shift A, Mesh, and select Cylinder. I'm going to hit G and then Z to move this up slightly. And the first thing I want to do is toggle on X-ray mode. If you do Alt-Z, it'll toggle it on, or you can just come up here to click it. That's just so I can see what the can looks like behind my actual shape. And let's go ahead and enter edit mode. So the keyboard shortcut for that is Tab, or you can come up here to this drop down and select edit mode. Completely up to you. Alright, so let's scale this up on the Z axis really quick. You do that by hitting S and then Z, moving these up. Excuse my dog crying in the background too. So I just need to select this top part here. You can do this by holding Alt and then left clicking on an edge here. And it should select the entire top edge. And then I'm just going to hit G to grab and then Z to move this upwards to about right there. You don't have to be a stiffler like me. All right. So far, so good. I am seeing that it might be too wide. So I'm going to hit A on my keyboard to select all. And we're going to size this down. So you do that by hitting S to scale and then Shift Z together to bring this in. And all I'm doing is moving my mouse, not clicking anything after I entered those shortcuts. Moving it left or right to align this better. And I should have zoomed in because I am blind. So right there is fine. You would use the same shortcut if your can is wider, right? If you're using a different reference image. But that is looking good so far. So let's go ahead and add loop cuts. The keyboard shortcut to add a loop cut is Control R. And you see if you just, I'm not clicking anything, but if you move your mouse around, sometimes a yellow line, there we go, will pop up vertically. We want to do it horizontally, but we want to add two. And to add two, you just use your scroll wheel to scroll up once. You'll notice that an additional line pops up. So once yours looks like this, left click once and then left click again to drop both of these. And we basically want to line them up to this line right here and then this line right here, which is kind of where that curve starts to happen. So I'm going to scale this up on the Z, so S and then Z. And that one looks fine. Let's double check. Let's do Alt, left click on this loop here, then G and then Z to move this down. Oh, that looks about right. And we'll do the same thing for this bottom part. So Alt, left click on an edge. Remember guys, these are edges and these points are your vertices. Select an edge, Alt and an edge to select the entire loop cut. So G and then Z. Oops, did I hit? I'm going to hit escape to undo that. G, Z, there we go. I'm going to move this down to about right here. Right, so next thing I want to do is add an additional loop cut here so we can start kind of bringing this in a little bit more. Oh my goodness, my cat. Right, so same thing, Control R. Hover until you get this line right here, left click once, left click again to drop. And don't click anywhere else because this loop cut's already selected for us. You're going to hit S, Shift, and Z again to bring this in. So if you notice this photo is not symmetrical, and that's fine. If we can get one side to line up, then we are okay. So I'm going to use the left-hand side. That's lined up. Cool. I'm going to hit Alt-Option again and select this loop cut, or I'm sorry, this edge right here to select the entire loop cut. We're going to do the same thing. We want to size this down. So S, Shift, and Z really quick, and then move our mouse to line that up about there. All right, we will come back for this, I promise. But let's go check up at the top and let's do the same thing. Control R, left click once there, kinda. Yeah, that's about right. Left click to confirm. S and then Shift Z to bring this in. Okay. Select this loop cut again. So Alt Edge Select and then S Shift Z. And I'm lining this up to like the edge over here. All right. Now we do have this lip happening right here. So let's add that loop cuts. Control R, left click, move this downwards like this. Left click to confirm. S Shift Z and line that up right there. Right, so we can tell that there's kind of bevels inward. So with this loop cut still selected, two ways you can bevel. Your tools panel has this button right here that you can click, or you can do Control B or Command B as in bevel. And if you notice, you just have to move your mouse. I'm not clicking anything once I hit that, but you can also use your scroll wheel to add additional bevels, and that's completely up to you. I think we'll be okay at about 3 here. Yep, that looks good. And with that bevel, we can actually hit Alt. Click on this loop cut and then S Shift Z to bring this in. We're going to have to do a lot of moving around. Now I can select this loop cut here. S Shift Z. Okay. I'm gonna go take a look at the other side. That looks great. All right. Okay. At this point, if you wanted to go in here, right, and smooth anything out, that's completely up to you to do. But I'm okay with this so far. So I'm going to turn off X-ray mode really quick. I'm going to go back into object mode just to see what it's looking like. And it's looking fairly decent. Of course, it's still a little rough, right? But we can move on to the next step, which is smoothing it. So this is still selected, right? My cylinder. Actually, let me rename this to the actual can. Should have come up with a drink name. Right, so that's still selected. I want you to right click on your viewport and then select Shade Smooth. You'll notice that looks 10 times better, but it's still looking a little wonky with all the shadows. And we can fix that by hovering over to this icon right here that says Object Data Properties. Your properties changes, look for the one that says normals and click on that little arrow. And I want you to toggle on Auto Smooth. And that looks 100 times better now. Right, we're still not done, but we've come a long way. And this is a good spot, I think, for you to do your first save. So you're going to go to File, Save As. You're going to look for that folder you just made, right? So your USB, Drink 3D. Don't click on the assets, but come down here and rename this to Can 01. For Blender, you're always going to do a file save as for almost like any day that you come in here, or the video says just save as, just because files can get easily corrupted when you're working with 3D software. So don't get too comfortable doing just a Command S. The habit is doing Command save as, save as anytime you do something major, which is why it's important for you to start organizing your USB because you cannot get away with having a hot mess USB when you're working with 3D stuff. So can01 blend save as. Right, and then we will move on to the next step in the next video.